Alright, what's up guys? So, I wanted to talk about Diablo, Path of Exile, and Lost Ark. Kind of compare the three games, and give my thoughts on them. With Diablo, I'm going to talk about Diablo 2 and Diablo 4. With Path of Exile, talk mostly just about POE and not so much on POE 2 because there's still not a whole lot on it, but we'll discuss a little bit about it. And with Lost Ark, I'm almost to the tier 3 content, but I've kind of lost a lot of my desire to continue playing the game, which was what kind of prompted me to make this video to kind of discuss what I think some of the things are about it that personally I don't like, and I think most of the players who enjoy Diablo 2 especially and who enjoy Path of Exile will probably have similar feelings. I've put thousands of hours into Diablo 2 and Path of Exile, maybe even more than that. So I think I have a pretty good idea of what makes those games fun and what I like about them. So with Diablo and Path of Exile, the main draw for me was always character creation and character builds. So there are, unique items, especially in Path of Exile, that are build defining. So you can create an entire build around a specific unique item, which allows a unique play style. Or with Diablo 2 and Path of Exile, you can also build around specific skills. Or there's a lot of play between your gear and your skills and your stats, which will create, the character that you're trying to build. And of course, they all have different strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes they're overpowered, sometimes it's not as good as you had hoped. But there's that's where I get enjoyment, is trying to think of or come up with what seems like a really cool build, or something that just when I look at it looks like it would be strong when combined together. And so I want to take that and push it as far as I can and try and min max those builds. With Lost Ark, it's much more of an MMO style of game, even though it is a top-down isometric ARPG. It's very well polished, and the game is fun to play. There's just it lacks that build diversity that pulls me into Diablo 2 and Path of Exile. Also, the itemization in it is just kind of, it's too similar to World of Warcraft or just other MMOs, but it has its own kind of little take on it, where you just get basically a tier 1 set or tier 2 set and a tier 3 set. There's like a blue orange or blue purple and orange set within each tier, and then you just take that, you farm materials, and then you upgrade your gear, which just increases its item level until you reach the next threshold to move up to the tier 2 or tier 3 content. And the thing that I don't like about this, and that just kind of made me lose desire to continue playing, is that there's not really any build creation or build diversity. It's somewhat like Diablo 3, where you can just freely swap out your skills, which is okay. It wasn't a huge issue to me in this game because there's so many classes, and there's still room for build diversity, but you don't really get to think up your own builds. Each class has their own identity, which is interesting and they're very well designed. It's just I kind of lose interest when I don't have a build. Usually, what keeps me going and playing is the build that I have in mind and trying to push that to the max. So, in those other titles, you'll take your character, and I usually will play in hardcore, which makes it a little more challenging. So, you take your character, and then you need to get the figure out your stats, your skills, your gear, then level the character, and the general idea you start out with, you may deviate a little bit from as you're leveling. You things that you thought might work may end up not working out so great, and you may tweak it a little bit, or you'll come up with something that just pushes it a little bit further and makes it stronger than you originally had thought. So it's fun to do that for me, and then to take those characters into challenging content and see how they fare, how they compare to other people's characters, other people's builds, my own previous characters and builds. Is that's what I find fun and interesting and compelling in those games. But with Lost Ark, since you're gated from even playing the content based off your item level, the developers get to set the difficulty for you specifically. Everyone's difficulty level is the same. So a lot of times the gear is scaled to the content where you probably are strong enough to do much higher content that would maybe be a little bit challenging, but you can't because your item level is not high enough. And then when your item level is high enough, the content is just doesn't feel all that challenging. And then the difficulty curve is also um, maintained by just giving bosses a lot of party wipe mechanics, which I is just kind of annoying because the bosses themselves aren't very difficult. They just can instantly kill your entire party if one person happens to mess up a mechanic, or if they don't know and they're not familiar with the mechanic, then your whole party dies. And that can be kind of annoying and frustrating when you're fighting a boss that's not challenging aside from just some silly mechanic. And the biggest challenge is hoping that one person in your party doesn't screw it up and get everyone killed. So those are kind of my complaints right now with Lost Ark that's making me not really want to continue playing the game. I did notice though, as I've been following the development of D4 or Diablo 4, and I'm noticing that there's a lot of similarities between Diablo 4 and Lost Ark. So I'm thinking that Blizzard probably has taken a lot of inspiration and sort of repurposed ideas from Smilegate and from Lost Ark to put into Diablo 4. I'm gonna assume that that's where they got the idea for mounts from, and then also just like a joined overworld like Lost Ark with possibly channels separating. There may be 20 or 30 people or however many in the same channel with multiple channels in the same area. But if you look at the Diablo 4 information and videos that have come out so far, it looks very similar to Lost Ark. There's, world bosses in the overworld that you can come across, and it's going to take, a dozen or two players to kill them. Similarly, to Lost Ark. There's an overworld, which it sounds kind of like Diablo 4 from what they've said and put out so far, that you can travel to any area, and then the content is somehow going to kind of scale to your level, which makes me hope it's not scaling to like an item level, um, similar to the Lost Ark item level system. It's hard to say though if when they say that if they mean character level or item level. That was one thing that in Path of Exile and Diablo 2 that I think was just a better way to do it than Lost Ark has done it. It depending on the strength of your character, you have to determine is the most efficient way for me to farm XP or loot, etc. Is it more efficient for me to kill stronger enemies at a slightly slower kill speed or a slower clear speed? Or is it more efficient for me to kill weaker mobs that I can kill incredibly fast and with low risk, little to no risk of dying? So that's one thing where it's like you kind of get to pick your difficulty and your risk level depending on what content you want to take on with your character, which also gives you that added level of enjoyment of, wow, my character is really strong. This build's really strong because normally at this stage or this level, my other characters or other people's characters struggle on this content, but I'm breezing through it or killing it very quickly and efficiently, etc. So that's kind of why I've lost really the urge to play Lost Ark, and it also just happens that Elden Ring came out shortly after, and it's just a fantastic game. I won't talk too much about it since that's not the point of this video, but it's probably the best, one of the best, if not the best games I've played since I was a kid on the Super Nintendo. Really, the only other game I can think of that I've enjoyed playing this much was Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. So when I have free time and I have some spare time that I want to play something, um, right now it's between Lost Ark and Elden Ring, and Lost Ark has turned into feeling like more of a chore, just logging in to get my chores done so that I can go have fun and play some Elden Ring. So I've just kind of, you know, dawned on me that if it was feeling like a chore to play a game and I wanted to play something else, then why am I wasting my time playing a game that feels like a chore, that I have something else I'd rather play in my free time. So I'm looking forward to the Diablo 2 ladder. I'm probably gonna jump back in and make a hardcore character or two or three when that comes out. Initially, I never imagined it would take them this long to get patch, was it 2.4 out? Um, when they announced it in, what was it, November or December? I thought it would be out in January or early February at the latest, and it's now, I think, slated for April, maybe. I haven't really been following it too closely just because it's taken them so long. And when they first announced it, it kind of made me think that I should, you know, wait for the next patch and the ladder to start before I invest a whole lot of more time into Diablo 2. I was expecting it to come out fairly quickly, so I stopped playing my non-ladder Diablo 2 characters, hardcore characters, because I was kind of saving my energy to play 2.4 and play in the ladder in hardcore. But Blizzard has just been swirling around the toilet lately, and who knows what inner workings are going on there that's causing such delays and um, just problems with their development cycles. It sounds like they're, not going to have a WoW expansion for some time, which I don't really care about, but if they are not releasing a WoW expansion anytime soon, that tells you that there's something um, internally that they are dealing with that's significant. One thing I've thought potentially could be going on is that they're moving a lot of people into the Diablo 4 development cycle, trying to get that out um, quickly. And I could see it releasing next year, potentially, in maybe the summertime. I won't be surprised at all if they release it next year. And I think that, they realize, they see the writing on the wall that World of Warcraft is not gonna really be around a whole lot longer. Um, there's just a lot of competition for it, and it's way past its prime. There's really, I personally don't know anyone that plays it anymore, so it's hard for me to really know what state WoW is in. But really, all I hear is negative things from the internet, etc. So I could see them moving people into Diablo 4 because they know they need to get that game out, and it's probably going to be their main source of revenue between that and their terrible, terrible Diablo Immortal mobile game. That's probably where they're hoping their revenue is going to start coming in from soon. So I'm kind of expecting Diablo 4 to look a lot like Lost Ark, but I'm hoping that it doesn't lose its build diversity, and I hope it's not gated by like item level type mechanics. So it has me a little concerned. I can see them that they're going to want to monetize it in a way that people can whale. I won't be surprised if there's some sort of in-game currency that it's possible to exchange real money for. There's definitely going to be mounts um, that you can purchase. Otherwise, I don't know why they would have mounts in the game in the first place. That's whenever, anytime you hear anything about mounts nowadays, I just assume that there's going to be mounts that you can purchase with money. And I'm hoping that they don't involve cosmetics. That's one thing that I really don't like about Path of Exile, is that if you want your character to look cool, you have to buy cosmetics, which, I mean, Path of Exile has a great, very, very good monetization method. It's, not pay to win at all. It's unless you consider having additional storage space pay to win, but I don't. It's more of a convenience thing, just for people that want to hoard items and do currency recipes, etc. And then organize stuff and trade a lot. But you really, if you get them on sale and you just play in the leagues and you're not playing in standard, you should not really have too much of an issue in terms of running out of storage tabs in just a few months. So in Diablo 4, things I don't mind being in the game as far as monetization goes are mounts. That doesn't bother me. I don't really know if I want to see pets. It just, pets in a Diablo game is just kind of feels weird. I don't know if they really have a place. It wouldn't ruin the game for me, but um, it it wouldn't really make me very excited. I would I would reserve judgment, but I would kind of have a sour taste in my mouth at the moment if I heard about it, because it would make me question where they're taking the game. It kind of takes you out of the dark. Like Diablo was always the serious title for Blizzard. Like Warcraft, Starcraft, they were very tongue-in-cheek humor. They were serious. They were serious, um, but they also had a lot of humor and light-hearted moments, jokes, funny things in them, even though they were serious. But Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, there was nothing, funny about it. It was all dark, gritty, and serious. And so that was one of the things that I think kind of ruined Diablo 3 was it lost that. And they put a bunch of stuff in it that should never have been in the game, including the pets that they put in there. Just seeing a little tiny pet following other people around, that's bright and colorful or has no place in the Diablo universe. It just kind of takes away from the spirit of the Diablo games. If they wanted to have some sort of demon slave type creature that you could make do your bidding, if they could work it into the lore, I don't think it would really bother me. But just adding in colorful pets that you can purchase, like in Lost Ark, I would not like that. I don't mind paying for extra storage space. In fact, if they added that into Diablo 2, I would purchase additional storage space in a heartbeat. I had to keep throwing away items in my hardcore uh, characters because I was tired of trying to mule them. And there's just no good way, really, unless you're making Excel sheets or spreadsheets to keep track of what's on your mules. And with their, 30-second or 1 minute lockout between switching characters, it really sucks when you're trying to look through 10 mules for one item, because that could take you 10 minutes just to be able to log into each character. Um, I'm trying to think of some other monetization that doesn't bother me. Like, I don't mind certain effects like character glow effects, footsteps, um, cosmetics that are added to your items, like in Path of Exile, where you buy sort of like a glowy cosmetic that will apply to your armor or your helmet. But that's just something that Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 had right, in that the gear you got, you could see what, well, not exactly in Diablo 1, but in Diablo 2, you could tell what armor someone was wearing and what gear they had by the appearance most of the time. Pretty much everything. In POE, you can tell, but they can change it with cosmetics, and they can transmog items, and so you don't actually know what people are wearing based off the appearance. There's that uncertainty from that, which I don't like. I enjoy being able to look at people's characters and have an idea of what their build is, just based off the gear that they're wearing. And then also, as one thing in Lost Ark, with if you bought a founder's pack or if you had a skin to start out with, my character has looked exactly the same for my entire playthrough. So as you get new gear and progress through the game, there's not really any sense of growth or character development. I just see bigger numbers on the screen when I hit things, and my health pool is larger. So that's one thing that I think in an RPG that you need to tell the player that they're getting stronger, that you want your character to look cool. So when you start off in that basic sort of leather half naked look. And then later on, you're in your heavy spiked armor with magical glowy effects and stuff. It makes you feel really cool. It makes you feel strong and powerful. Being able to purchase cosmetics and just having your character look the same all the time kind of takes away from that. So I don't like that, but I wouldn't mind if you could add effects to your armor. That's something that I think would be fine in terms of monetization. I hope that they don't have a monthly subscription into it or some kind of crystalline aura type effect in Diablo 4. But it won't surprise me if they do start heading down that path. I know that just Blizzard is not the cash cow that Activision and now probably Microsoft want it to be. So they're trying to find ways to get more money out of people's pockets and into their coffers. So don't be surprised if they start implementing more and more kind of questionable monetization methods, like we saw with the Diablo 3 auction house. They eventually removed it, but only after it had basically already ruined the game and ruined most of the players' goodwill towards the game. I myself tried to go back and play Diablo 3 a couple times after they took out the auction house. I think after Reaper of Souls came out. I think no, I tried once after they implemented the Paragon system, and I didn't just couldn't like they implemented the free play and the Paragon system, and I tried to go back and play it again then, but it still just had too many issues. I tried to play it when they after Reapers of Souls came out, and I played it for a couple weeks or a month or so and quickly got bored of it. So hopefully they don't do anything quite as egregious in Diablo 4, but I'm really expecting it to have drawn a lot from Lost Ark, which is why I wanted to include it. However, the development diaries that they've put out for it, I do have a lot of hope because they've shown that there are skill trees and passives in the game, which makes me hope that there's going to be a lot of build diversity, and that it may be somewhat of a blend between Diablo 2, Path of Exile, and Lost Ark. I mean, I think if they can draw from the good things about those games, like the polish of Lost Ark and kind of the overworld. The Lost Ark, don't get me wrong, it's a good game. It's just not one that can keep me satisfied because it lacks the build diversity and it lacks that character customization that I crave. But if they can take the polish, like the boss fights, without the stupid party kill mechanics in them, if they can take a lot of the good from Lost Ark and combine that with the character customization of Path of Exile, along with the unique characters of Diablo 2, that would be my ideal ARPG. One of the things with Path of Exile that I think is it almost goes a little too far in terms of that the classes don't feel like they have their own identity. Like if I make a druid in Diablo 2, I know what skills and spells I have and sort of what my options to build a character around are. In Path of Exile, especially before the Ascendancy classes were added, there was, you could take any character and build it. Like I could take a witch and she could have more strength than a marauder, using, you know, giant two-handed weapons with melee skills. I could take a Marauder, and he could be basically as good of a caster as, you know, a witch. With the ascendancy classes, you're a little more limited in terms of if you're min maxing, you know, what builds you want to do. Like, it kind of guides you a little bit, pushes you in a certain direction. So, you know, taking a certain class for a certain build will be more optimal because of the ascendancy classes. But with the way the ascendancy classes work, especially in hardcore, a lot of times you can only, you know, safely get your first 2 or 4 points, or sorry, your first 4 or 6 points. Like, getting your final ascendancy points is incredibly risky because a lot of times you're going to lose your character in hardcore. So I don't like that the ascendancy classes are gated behind content like that, to the point where it's like you've got to do it 3 or 4 times to even really get the benefits you want from the ascendancy classes. I don't know why you're not just able to. Personally, to me, it should just be unlocked. You know, if you want it to be gated behind the first time you do the trials, for ascendancy, and then unlock points at, you know, every 5 or 10 levels or something like that. That would make more sense to me because, you know, you could have a level 100, or, you know, a fully leveled character in Path of Exile and 0 ascendancy points, which, I just don't like the way that system works. I like the ascendancy classes, and I like what they bring to the table and the skills that they add and passives. I mean, but I strongly dislike how it's gated behind that content, because it just, to me, your character growth, that should come from leveling up your character in terms of like your skills and your passives and your attributes. Other The other part of your character is the gear, and then that comes from playing the content. When, you know, your character build is gated behind really rippy content, especially for hardcore characters, it's like you're disincentivized from growing and building your character because you may lose your character. So it's like picking between, you know, build defining passives or dying and losing your character. That to me is a bad choice to put on the character, or on the player. So we'll see, kind of where they go with Diablo 4, and if whether or not they make any more changes in Diablo 2 Resurrected after patch 2.4. I won't be surprised if they don't. I kind of think Diablo 2 Resurrected is, it's kind of a homage to the players, and just to tide us over until Diablo 4 comes out. I really will be surprised if they continue doing anything beyond just like a simple ladder reset in D2 Resurrected after Diablo 4 comes out. Lost Ark, I mean, I think it's a lot of people are kind of sputtering out in the Western release currently, compared to, you know, the initial launch. And, you know, I would be interested to know if other people kind of feel the same that I do. I know a lot of people are upset with, you know, how it's kind of pay to win, those mechanics in the game. I know that's a big part of it, but I'm wondering also how much of it is just out of the, you know, kind of lack of build diversity and the PvP. I mean, PvP is a huge part of Diablo 2. It's not really that big in Path of Exile. I know people were like really excited and looking forward to it when it first came out, and it just kind of lost its appeal pretty quickly. So I mean, I would be interested if Diablo 4 has good PvP similar to Diablo 2, but I mean, the Lost Ark PvP, it was kind of fun, but too much of it. It's like you spend so much of it just getting CC'd and knocked down. Like you spend half the match laying on the ground, basically. It's like you can't even engage the other players because you're just gonna get knocked down and then killed and CC'd almost permanently. It's like whoever can CC the other team the most wins. And so if you don't have like a bard on your team, you and the other team does, you just kind of lose. Um, so yeah, I mean that's kind of what it is. So I mean I really hope Diablo 4 has good PvP. That would be great. But the other thing with the Lost Ark PvP is it's all like you don't even get to use your build in the PvP, so it's normalized. Everybody gets the same amount of stats, and like there's basically like you have no gear. You can't even use your engravings or your runes. So like I'm playing a berserker and I'm a mayhem berserker, but I can't even use mayhem in the PvP. So it's just kind of frustrating. It's like if I'm gonna play Lost Ark PvP, I don't play Dota anymore or League of Legends, but it's like the Lost Ark PvP. I would rather play one of those games than play the Lost Ark PvP because it's just there's not a lot of depth to it. You don't get to have any customization or build. It's just what you get like 1,000 points to spend, and then it's whatever you decide to spend those points on, and then what skills you pick. And it's pretty much uh, been played enough that people know the optimal setups for each class. So you're not even, but you don't even get to take your character in there. It's like, so it's just kind of frustrating to me. But I'm looking forward a lot to Diablo 4, and I'm probably gonna be playing a lot of Elden Ring. Still, almost finished with my first playthrough, and I'm really looking forward to, like I said, Diablo 4, and then I'll probably check out the Diablo 2 ladder, and we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's fun playing hardcore with everybody leveling up and watching people die. So, thanks for listening, guys, and remember to give them the D.